My phone buzzed on the counter for the third time that week, and I let it go. Mom's name sat on the screen for a while before it went dark again. I told myself the same thing I'd been telling myself since the leaves started turning. Levi goes quiet in October. He's closing the store down for winter, boxing up the summer stock, getting the place ready to sit empty till May. He doesn't answer his phone when he's busy. That's not new. I finished my sandwich standing at the counter and rinsed the plate and did not call her back. 2 days later, she called again, and this time I picked up. "Ricky." Her voice already had the shape of something bad in it. "I haven't heard from your brother in 8 days. 8 days is a lot for him, but it's not." "I know what it's not," she said. "Let me finish." I stopped talking. "The last time we spoke," she said, "he sounded like he was outside, in the dark, walking fast, like he wanted to get somewhere. He said he had to go." "Go where?" "He didn't say. He said not to worry you. He said he was fine, that he was just dealing with something on the island, and then he said he had to go, and that was it." "Dealing with what?" "He wouldn't say." I stood there in my kitchen holding the phone against my ear, and neither of us said anything for a second. I could hear her breathing on the other end, the particular quiet she gets when she's decided not to cry until after she hangs up. "I'll drive up," I said. "Ricky." "I'll drive up, Mom." She didn't argue with that. She just said, "Okay," in a small voice, and told me to call her when I got there. And I said I would. After we hung up, I put the phone down on the counter and looked at it like it might do something else on its own. Levi ran Hales General on Market Street for 3 years. Small storefront, hand-painted sign, selling fishing line and postcards and canned soup to the 200 people who actually live on Mackinac Island once the tourists clear out. He liked it there. He never said much about why, just that it suited him, and I never pushed. He kept things to himself and expected you to trust that he had it handled. He usually had it handled. I pulled up a map on my phone. Grand Rapids to Mackinac City. 4.5 hours north, straight up the state, past Gaylord, past nothing much after that. I checked the ferry schedule next. The island doesn't take cars, never has. You leave your vehicle in a lot in Mackinac City and cross the strait by boat. Most of the season's runs had already stopped for the year, but there was still one regular crossing a day, the last of the season, still listed as operating. I sat with that for a minute, phone in my hand, screen still lit. Then I got up and pulled my bag out of the closet. I didn't pack for a vacation. 2 changes of clothes, a jacket heavier than I needed for Grand Rapids in October, my phone charger, a flashlight I hadn't used since a camping trip 2 summers back. I stood in front of my dresser for a second, trying to think if there was anything else, and there wasn't. Not really. A day, 2 at most. Find him. Find out what he was dealing with. Tell him to call his mother. Drive home. I zipped the bag and set it by the door, the ferry schedule still open on my phone screen. The drive took 4.5 hours. I don't remember most of it. I know I stopped once for gas outside Cadillac and once more for coffee I didn't drink, and I know the trees got thinner and the sky got flatter the farther north I went, until by the time I hit the straits, it looked like somebody had wrung the color out of the whole state. The lot at the ferry dock was almost empty. A handful of cars, a couple of trucks, nothing like what I remembered from the one summer I'd come up here as a kid. No families dragging coolers, no line at the ticket window. Just gray water past the dock and a gray sky sitting right on top of it, no line between them at all. I parked, grabbed my bag, and walked in. The woman behind the counter looked up like she was surprised to have anyone to sell a ticket to. "Round trip," I said. She printed it without asking when I'd be coming back, just handed it over. "I'm looking for my brother," I said. "Levi Sutherland. He runs a store on Market Street. Sutherland's General." Something changed in her face. Not much. Just a pause before she answered, the kind of pause where somebody's deciding how much to say. That's been shuttered a week now, she said. Little over a week, actually. 8 days. 8 days. He didn't say anything to the others on that block either. That's not like him. Those merchants look out for each other once the season winds down. Everybody keeps an eye on everybody's place. He just didn't open one day and didn't open the next. I stood there holding the ticket. You know him? I asked. Everybody knows everybody this time of year. She said it like that should have been obvious. You'll want the 2 o'clock. That's the last one today. I thanked her and went and sat on a bench outside until it was time to board. The boat was small, low in the water, nothing like the big catamarans that ran in summer. 4 of us got on. Me, an older man in a canvas coat who didn't look at anybody, a woman with a rolling suitcase, and a deckhand who took our tickets and didn't say much either. The engine was loud and the deck smelled like diesel and cold lake water. 20 minutes, they said. It felt longer. I stood at the rail most of the way. The lake was flat, no wind to speak of, just a slow gray swell that lifted the boat and set it down again. You could see the island a long way off, the limestone bluffs first, pale rock rising up out of the water before anything else showed itself. Then the town came into view along the shoreline, the white Victorian storefronts I remembered from being a kid, the ones that used to be strung with flags and crowded with people buying fudge and postcards. Most of them were dark. Not closed for the season dark like nobody had turned a light on in there for a while. I didn't think much of it right then. I told myself it was October. I told myself the whole island probably looked like that by now, the whole place folding up early the way small towns do when the money leaves with the tourists. That was the story I was telling myself when the boat slowed and the pier came up alongside us and the deckhand tied off the line. I stepped off onto the main pier with my bag over my shoulder. It was quiet. Quieter than I expected, even accounting for the season. A few lights on somewhere down the row of buildings, but no one walking. No bikes, no carriages. None of the sounds you'd expect even in the slow months. Just the water lapping against the pilings and somewhere behind me the ferry engine idling before it cut out entirely. This didn't feel like a town settling in for winter. It felt like a town that had already left. Ricky stands on the main pier with his bag and looks up at the row of dark storefronts along Main Street, then starts walking. The bar's owner rented me a room above the anchor without asking how long I wanted it for. Nobody does nightly rates after Labor Day, she said. Week's the same price either way. I paid for a week. I didn't argue about it. I left my bag on the bed without unpacking anything and went straight back down the stairs and out onto Main Street. Sutherland's General was 3 blocks over on Market, in a narrow building with a hand-lettered sign that Levi had painted himself the summer he opened it. The front door was locked. The window behind it was dark, no lights, no movement, just shelves I could see the shapes of and nothing more. I went around the side, into the alley between his building and the next one. There was a wooden staircase there I remembered from a photo Levi had sent me years ago, and at the top of it a door. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and the kitchen light was on. That was the first thing. Not the coat, not the box. The light. Burning in the middle of the afternoon, in an apartment where nobody had answered a phone in 8 days. Levi's winter coat hung on the hook beside the door, the same brown canvas one he'd had for years. A cardboard box sat in the middle of the kitchen floor, half packed with plates and mugs wrapped in newspaper, a dish towel draped over one edge of it like he'd set it there to grab in a second, and then just hadn't come back. It didn't look abandoned. It looked paused. I stood there for a minute without touching anything. Then I saw his phone on the counter, face down, and I picked it up, and the screen stayed black. Dead. His charger was still in the wall next to the toaster, the cord curled on the counter like he'd left it there on purpose. I plugged the phone in and leaned against the counter and waited. It took 4 minutes to come back to life. The lock screen loaded, then the home screen, and I went straight to the call log because that was the only thing I could think to look at first. Last outgoing call, October 14th, 4 minutes. To Mom. I called her right there in his kitchen. "Ricky?" She sounded like she'd been waiting by the phone, which she probably had. "Mom, I'm at Levi's. His phone was here. Dead, but I got it going. The last call he made was to you. October 14th, 4 minutes. She didn't say anything for a second. "I know," she said finally. "You know?" "He called me that night. I didn't tell you because he asked me not to worry you. He said he was fine. He said he was just dealing with something out there on the island, and he didn't want to say what, and I..." She stopped. "I thought he meant it. I thought it was nothing." "What kind of something?" "He wouldn't tell me, Ricky. I asked him twice. He just said he had to go." "Where was he when he called you? Could you tell?" "He sounded like he was outside, walking, fast, like he was in a hurry to get somewhere. I could hear wind." I looked at the coat on the hook and didn't say anything for a while. "Okay," I said. "I'll call you later." I hung up before she could ask me anything else. I opened the photo library next. The last picture was time-stamped 11:52 at night, October 14th, same night as the call. It was dark, almost nothing in it, a stretch of pale rock close up, like he'd been standing right against it, and below that a smear of black that had to be water. The whole thing was blurred, like his hand hadn't been steady, and the camera was pointed at the rock itself instead of out at the view a person would normally take a picture of. I zoomed in. The resolution wasn't good enough, and the dark wasn't kind enough to tell me if there was anything on that stone or if it was just stone. I zoomed in again anyway. Nothing came clearer. I put the phone in my jacket pocket and stood in the middle of the kitchen. The light was still on above me. The coat was still on its hook, arms hanging loose like somebody was going to walk over and put it on any second. The box sat where it sat, half full, the dish towel over its edge exactly the way it had been when I walked in. Nothing about it had an explanation. Nothing about it needed one, not on its face. People leave lights on all the time. But he hadn't come back for any of it. 8 days, and none of it had moved. I took the last photo on Levi's phone with me. The bluff, the black water, the pale rock. It wasn't much to go on, but it was more than nothing, and the light was already dying, so I didn't have time to be careful about it. The path started at the north end of Market Street and ran along the water past the last of the summer houses, most of them boarded, their porches empty. Nobody stopped me. The island had that feel a town gets when the season's over, like everyone's gone home and forgot to tell the lights. The trail narrowed fast once the houses ran out. Unpaved, maybe 2 feet wide in places, limestone dropping off sharp on my right down to the lake. I kept the phone in my hand, glancing at the photo every so often, trying to match the angle of rock to what was in front of me. It wasn't exact. It didn't need to be. There was only one bluff like this on the island, and I was walking it. The light went from gray to grayer. I didn't have a flashlight yet, hadn't thought I'd need one for what I told myself was just a look around before dinner. I found the boot where the path pinched down to its tightest point, the rock wall pressing in on one side and the drop opening up on the other. It was set neatly on its side against the stone, laced, tied, standing there like somebody had set it down on purpose and meant to come back for it. Size 12. Levi's size. I crouched next to it and didn't touch it for a while. I just looked. There was no second boot. I checked both directions along the path, walked 20 feet one way and 20 feet the other, and there was nothing. One boot, laced, on a trail with no houses left on it and no reason for a man to take off a single shoe and set it down like that and walk on. I took the phone out and photographed it where it sat. Then I picked it up. Worn at the heel the way Levi wore all his boots, weight coming down hard on the outside edge, always had since we were kids. Then I stood up and walked to the edge and looked down. The water was maybe 15 feet below, black and moving in slow, flat swells against a narrow shelf of limestone. I couldn't see anything on the rock. Couldn't see much of anything at all. The light was almost gone by then, just enough left to tell stone from water and water from sky. I stood there and listened. There was nothing to hear except the lake working against the rock, the same sound over and over, patient about it. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough that when I finally turned around, I couldn't see the path behind me without walking toward it first. I carried the boot back into town in my other hand, the one not holding the phone, and I didn't look at it again until I was up the stairs at the Anchor Bar and inside my room with the door shut behind me. I set it on the floor next to the bed. Too ordinary. A boot on a floor, the kind of thing you'd trip over reaching for a light switch, except this one I'd carried off a cliff path in the dark because it was the only piece of my brother I had that wasn't a coat on a hook or a box nobody had come back to finish. I sat down on the mattress. Levi's phone was still in my hand. The boot sat there on the floor in front of me, laced, upright now, waiting the way it had been waiting on the rock. The stairs down to the bar creaked the same way they had going up. I noticed that this time. The Anchor Bar was mostly dark, except for the light over the taps. Two men sat at the far end with beers they weren't drinking fast, and nobody looked up when I came in. Clementine Richardson was behind the bar with a glass in one hand and a towel in the other, turning the glass slow, working the towel into it without looking down. Mid-50s, short hair. "What can I get you?" she said. Not a question, really. Just a thing bartenders say. "Whiskey," I said. "And I'm looking for my brother, Levi Sutherland. He runs the general store on Market." She stopped turning the glass. "Hales General," she said. "I know Levi. His shop's locked up. His apartment's not. Coat's still on the hook. There's a box on the floor, half packed, like he was in the middle of it. His phone was on the counter, dead." She set the glass down on the bar top, careful, like it might tell on her if she put it down wrong. "He's not the first one I've heard that about this month," she said. I didn't say anything. I let her keep going. "Dana and Curtis Ford," she said, "ran the fudge shop, 112 Main. Everybody calls them the Macs. I don't know why, they just do. Stopped picking up their phone first week of October. Shop's been dark since the 8th. Somebody check on them." Hayden did. She picked the glass back up, started drying it again, like her hands needed something to do while her mouth worked. Told me they went to their daughter's place in Petoskey. Left early this year. "You believe that?" "I'm telling you what he told me." "There's a third," she said. "Samuel West. Does the winter maintenance on the big summer cottages, has for 11 years. Nobody's seen him since the 9th, maybe the 10th. "What did Jacob say about him?" "Said Samuel took a job on the mainland." She wiped the same spot on the glass 3 times. "I don't believe that one." "Why not?" "Samuel had a wood stove delivery scheduled for the 3rd of November. Hendrick's Cottage, out on the East Bluff Road. Man like that doesn't leave an open work order. Not for anything." She set the glass down on the shelf behind her, lined it up with the others. "He wouldn't." I turned the glass in front of me but didn't drink from it yet. "Have you told anybody besides Jacobs that you're worried?" "Told him twice." "And?" "Second time he sat me down, more or less, and said the island loses people every October. A third of the year-round folks head for the mainland once the ferries thin out. Said I was taking 4 separate things and making them into one thing because it's been a hard season." She said it flat, the way you'd repeat back something you'd memorized without agreeing to it. Not unkind about it. He's never unkind about it. The 2 men at the end of the bar laughed at something between themselves, low, and it sounded wrong in the room, too loud for how empty the place was. "Did you believe him?" I said. "When he told you that?" Clementine picked the glass back up, started wiping it again, though it was already dry. I believed he wanted me to, she said. She didn't say anything else. She went back to the glass, turning it under the towel. The two men down the bar ordered another round, and she went to pour it. I sat there with my whiskey and didn't touch it. 4 names sat in front of me now instead of 1, Levi and the Max and Samuel West, laid out like a map I didn't want to read but couldn't stop looking at anyway. I woke up before it was light and lay there a while looking at the ceiling. Then I got up and walked to Main Street. The Max shop sat dark behind its own window, a hand-painted sign in the glass that said fudge, taffy, homemade. The letters faded from 3 summers of sun. The front door was locked. I could see through the glass to the counter, the empty display case, a stool pushed in at an angle like somebody had gotten up from it in a hurry and not come back to straighten it. I went around to the alley. The back door was unlocked. It gave when I pushed it, swinging in on a kitchen that smelled like old sugar and butter gone slightly rancid, and I stood in the doorway a second before I went in. 2 ceramic bowls sat on the work table. Big ones, the kind you'd use for a double batch. Flour in one, and in the other sugar with cocoa already sifted through it. The color gone dark and even, like somebody had taken the time to mix it right before they'd measured it in. A stick of butter sat softening on a plate between the bowls, gone soft past softening, gone almost to liquid at the edges. And on the counter, past the bowls, a kitchen timer. The old kind, a dial you twist, set to 20 minutes. Run down to 0. I looked at that timer a long time. Whoever set it meant to be standing right here when it rang. You set one because you were coming back in 20 minutes to check on something, and you wanted to be reminded, and then you went and did some other small thing in the meantime. Wiped a counter, answered a phone, stepped into the back for a bag of sugar, and the 20 minutes went by and the buzzer went off into an empty room and nobody heard it because nobody was there. This wasn't a woman who packed up her fudge shop and caught a boat to Petoskey. This was the exact same room as Levi's kitchen. A box half-packed, a towel over the edge. I took out Levi's phone and photographed the bowls, the butter, the timer with its dial sitting dead on 0. Then I put the phone away and let myself back out through the alley the way I'd come, and pulled the door shut behind me so it looked the way it had looked before I got there. Market Street was empty when I came out of the alley mouth, gray light, nobody moving, and I nearly walked straight into a woman standing in front of Levi's shop with her hands in her jacket pockets, looking up at the dark window like it might tell her something if she looked at it long enough. "Sorry," I said. She turned, and for a second neither of us said anything. "You're not Levi," she said. "I'm his brother." She held out her hand. "Beverly Reese," she said. "I'm a journalist. I interviewed your brother last July for a piece on year-round island economies, the people who stay when the tourists leave. I had a follow-up scheduled with him for this week." I shook her hand. It was cold. "He's not answering," I said. It wasn't a question. "I've been trying for 10 days, she said. "I called the shop line. I called his cell. I emailed him twice. Nothing. I figured he was just busy closing up for the season, so I kept rescheduling in my head, and then I ran out of patience and got on the ferry." She looked back at the window, at the dark glass, the counter behind it with nothing on it, the sign that still said open in Levi's handwriting, hanging the wrong way against the door. "I had a whole list of people to talk to for this piece," she said. "You'd be surprised how few of them actually live here year-round. Your brother was one. There's a couple that runs a fudge shop down the block. There's a handyman who does the cottages in the off-season." "The Max," I said. She looked at me. "You know them?" "I just came from their kitchen." "I've been trying to reach 4 people on this island," she said, looking at the dark window of Sutherland's General, "and I can't reach any of them." We went inside the bar and sat at the same table by the window, and I ordered coffee for both of us because neither of us had eaten. "I had a follow-up scheduled with Joel for this week," Beverly said. She caught herself. "Levi, sorry. I keep doing that." It's fine. I've been trying to reach him for 10 days, and the Fords and Samuel West. 4 people I needed to contact on this island are all unreachable, and I've been treating it as a logistics problem, like everyone's phone died at the same time. I took out Levi's phone and found the photograph of the boot and turned it so she could see the screen. She looked at it for a long time. Where was this? West Bluff Path last night. Whose boot? His, size 12. Left it there like it was set down on purpose. She didn't say anything else about it. She set her own phone on the table and pulled up her contacts and found a name. I have a guy at the ferry company, she said. Tom Garvey, dispatcher, operations office in Mackinac City. He pulls manifests for me sometimes, for stories. He owes me a favor or two. She called him right there at the table. I sat across from her and listened to her side of it. Tom, it's Beverly. I need a favor. Can you check outbound passenger manifests for October? 4 names. She read them off. Levi Sutherland, Dana Ford, Curtis Ford, Samuel West. There was a long silence while he checked. None of them, she said, watching me while she listened to him say it. Not on any date. You're sure? Okay. Thank you, Tom. I owe you. She put the phone down. None of them, she said again, to me this time. I didn't say anything for a second. That's not possible, I said. That's what I thought too. You can't get off this island without a ticket. There's a boat and there's a boat and that's it. I know. So they didn't leave. I know. We sat there with that for a while. The coffee went cold in front of both of us, and neither of us drank it. No record of any of them leaving. The story Hayden Jacobs had been telling everyone, gone to the mainland early, gone to Petoskey, taken a job somewhere else, wasn't just wrong. It couldn't have happened. We should figure out what we do with this, Beverly said. We walked out to Market Street to talk without the bartender in earshot, standing in front of Levi's dark window, and that was where Jacobs found us. He came around the corner on his bicycle, not hurrying, and stopped it in the road a few feet off, 1 foot still on the pedal. Miss Reese, he said. Mr. Sutherland. Neither of us said anything. I understand you placed a call to the ferry operations office this morning. Beverly's face didn't change. I did. The passenger manifest is not a public record, Jacob said. Whatever Tom Garvey shared with you, he shared without authorization. I'll be speaking with him. Then it's true, I said. You'll confirm it's true. He looked back at me, giving nothing away. He'd already decided not to answer. Levi Sutherland is not a missing person, he said. The island loses 1/3 of its year-round population to the mainland every October. It happens every year. You are welcome to stay as long as you like, Mr. Sutherland, or you can take the afternoon ferry. But you should understand something. This is a small community. People asking questions of the residents who are still here makes for a difficult winter. He said all of it in the same flat voice, no heat in any of it, like he was reading off a form. Neither of us answered him. He kept his foot on the pedal and stayed where he was, in the middle of the road, until we turned and started walking back toward Main Street, and when I looked back once, he hadn't moved. We didn't talk about it again until that evening, back at the bar, with the lights on and the street outside gone dark. I want to be on the mainland before I ask any more questions, Beverly said. 4 people are gone from an island you cannot leave without being counted, and the one man whose job it is to be alarmed about that is not alarmed. That's enough for me. 8:15, I said. 8:15, both of us. Both of us. She nodded like that settled it. I went upstairs to my room above the bar and sat down on the edge of the bed with Levi's phone still in my hand. The screen dark now, and I told myself I would be on that ferry in less than 12 hours. At 11, I got up anyway. I told myself I only wanted to look at the rock again, one more time, to see if it matched the photo I'd taken of the boot. I didn't wake Beverly. I didn't leave a note. I put on my jacket and took the flashlight and went out into the cold with the bar dark and shuttered below me. The path was the same as before, narrow and unpaved, the lake a flat black nothing on one side. I walked slower than I had in daylight, watching my feet. At the narrowest stretch, where the limestone dropped straight down and the boot had been sitting on its side against the rock, I stopped and looked for a way down. There was one, a rough cut in the stone, ledges stacked close enough together that a person could climb it if he didn't think too hard about it. I didn't think too hard about it. I went down. 10 feet, maybe less. My boots slid on the last ledge and I caught myself with a hand flat against cold stone, and then I was standing on the shelf, the water close enough that I could hear it working against the rock. A small patient sound like something chewing. I turned the flashlight on the rock face. The grooves were right at chest height, where a hand would go reaching for purchase. 4 of them side by side, evenly spaced, each one deep enough to lay a finger into up to the second knuckle. I put my hand up next to one, and my fingers didn't come close to matching the spacing. I moved the light up. Another set. Then another, a little higher. The same 4 lines. The same spacing, cut into stone that didn't crumble that easily for anybody. I counted them going up. 1 at the shelf, half of it already under black water. Then 6 more, climbing the rock face toward the path above, each set a little higher than the last, like rungs. 7. I stood there with the light shaking a little in my hand, not from the cold. No person did this. No person has fingers that spread that wide or nails that dig an inch into limestone and don't break. The lowest set was still wet. Some of it was under the surface. Whatever left those marks didn't come down the path and climb into the water. It came up out of it. I put the flashlight on the shelf itself for a second, at my own feet, at the black water sliding against the stone an arm's length away, and I thought about how long I'd already been standing there with my back to it. I climbed out. My hands were shaking by the time I got back to the path. It took longer going up than it had going down, and my boot slipped once on the second ledge, so I had to grab the rock with both hands and hold on for a second, breathing. At the top, I stood and looked out at the lake. It was black and flat and gave nothing back. No boats, no lights out on the water at all. Down the shoreline, the ferry dock had its single lamp burning, and I could hear it buzzing faintly even from this far off, the only sound anywhere on the whole island. I didn't call out. I didn't say anything. I just stood there for a while, looking at the water like it might answer for itself, and then I turned and walked back into town. I let myself into the bar through the side door and went up the stairs to my room without turning on any lights. I sat down on the edge of the bed with the flashlight still in my hand, resting in my lap now, the switch already off. Beverly found me at the bar a little after 7, her bag already over her shoulder. "Ricky, 4 people, an island you can't leave without being counted. Come on the boat." "I'll be on the afternoon one," I said. "I'll call you when I'm on the mainland." She looked at me for a second like she was deciding whether to say something else. Then she didn't. She picked up her bag and went. I watched her from the window until she turned onto the shore road, and then I finished my coffee, which had gone cold, and went out the other way. Samuel's cottage sat at the end of a gravel track off the East Bluff Road, 1 story, a porch facing the water. The padlock on the front door was new, not a mark on it. Whoever put it there hadn't bothered to make it look old. I went around and forced the side window instead. Inside it smelled like machine oil and cold dust. His tools were racked on the wall in neat rows, hand tools, a power drill, a coil of copper pipe hung on a nail. His logbook was open on the table. October 9th. Heard it again below the back porch. 3rd night. It breathes loud. Don't go to the edge. Below that, in a different pen, thinner, the ink lighter, the letters bigger and less steady, like he'd written it fast or in the dark. It came up. I read it twice. I didn't move for a second. The back porch door was gone. Not kicked in, not broken. The hinges had been drawn straight out of the frame from the outside, screws pulled clean through the wood, 4 neat holes, and no splintering anywhere around them. Whatever did that hadn't done it fast. It had done it slow and hard and didn't stop until it was done. I stood on the porch and looked down. The bluff dropped 15 feet to a shelf at the waterline. I couldn't see the rock face from up there, only the shelf itself, pale and empty between the stone and the black water. I took pictures of the logbook and the hinge holes with Levi's phone, then climbed back out the window I'd come in through. The interior trail was faster than the road, so that's the way I went. 50 yards from where it runs closest to the edge, I heard something below me. Low, wet, steady, like breathing that never stopped to breathe. I stopped walking. I went to the edge and looked down. There was a shape on the shelf, pale against the rock, crouched but not sitting, folded in a way that needed more joints than a person has, holding a shape a person's body couldn't hold. It shifted its weight without straightening. Slow, like it already knew I was there and didn't care. I turned my flashlight on for 2 seconds before my hand killed it on its own. In that light, I saw a forearm, long, white, ending in a hand with too many joints in it, 3 fingertips wrapped around a lip of rock, holding all that weight without any strain at all. Then a sound came up off the shelf. A click, low and round, 3 times, evenly spaced. It wasn't pointed at me. It went out across the water. It was calling something. I backed off the edge without standing all the way up, and then I ran. I took the interior trail the whole way, not looking back, and I came into Main Street breathing like I'd run 5 miles instead of 1. Jacobs was waiting outside the bar with 2 men I didn't know. Older, no uniforms. One of them I recognized. He'd been standing by the ticket counter at the dock the day I got here. Jacobs wasn't on his bicycle this time. All 3 of them stood in the road like they'd been there a while. "The afternoon ferry has been canceled," Jacobs said. "Weather." The sky was clear, no wind at all. Down at the end of the street, the lake sat flat and still, not a ripple on it. "You're welcome to wait in the deputy's office," he said. "It's warm. The morning ferry will run as scheduled, 8:15. One of the men held his hand out toward me, palm up, and waited. I looked at him and then at the flashlight still in my own hand, and I gave it to him. Jacobs and the 2 men turned and walked off down the street together, unhurried, like men headed home for supper. I went upstairs to my room and I didn't go back out. I sat on the edge of the bed with Levi's phone in my hand, and I stayed that way a long time. The dock was empty at 7:50. No one at the ticket window, no one on the bench, just the pilings and the gray water slapping against them. I got on the 8:15 and stood at the rail the whole way across. The bluffs went smaller behind me the way they'd gotten bigger 2 days before. The white houses shrank into the rock until they were just a smudge of color, and then not even that. The lake was flat and gray again, same as the first crossing. 20 minutes. I kept my eyes on the island until I couldn't tell it apart from the shoreline anymore. Beverly wasn't on the boat. I told myself she'd gotten a later ferry, or a different one, that there were other runs, and she'd taken one of those instead. I told myself that for most of the crossing. When we docked, I found the captain on the lower deck coiling a line and asked him whether a Beverly Reese had been on his 8:15 the morning before, the 24th. He wiped his hands on his jacket and pulled a clipboard down from a hook and ran a finger down it. "Rescheduled," he said. "Says here she rescheduled. Doesn't show she traveled that day at all." "You're sure?" "That's what the manifest says." He looked at me a second longer than he needed to. "She a friend of yours?" I didn't answer that. I thanked him and walked up the ramp into Mackinac City and sat in my car in the parking lot for a while before I started the engine. I drove straight to St. Ignace. The sheriff's office was a low brick building with a flag out front and a bell over the door that rang when I walked in. A deputy behind the counter took my name and asked what I needed to report, and I gave him 5 names: Levi Sutherland, Dana Ford, Curtis Ford, Samuel West, Beverly Reese. He wrote each one down on a form, slow, in block letters, and asked me to spell the ones I hadn't already spelled. He asked how I knew each of them, and I told him what I could without sounding like a man who'd spent a night on a bluff watching something come out of the lake. Brother, shopkeepers, maintenance man, journalist. He didn't ask me to say more than that. "Someone will follow up," he said. 72 hours. I asked him what that meant. Exactly. Follow up. And he said someone would be in touch. He didn't look up from the form when he said it. I drove home to Grand Rapids that night with the heater going and nothing on the radio worth listening to. The letter came 2 weeks later. It was from the Mackinac County Sheriff's Office, typed 1 paragraph. It said Levi Sutherland had departed Mackinac Island on October 14th via private charter and was not considered a missing person. It didn't name the charter. It didn't say who owned it, or where it had gone, or who had seen him get on it. It didn't say one word about Dana Ford, Curtis Ford, Samuel West, or Beverly Reese. I read it 3 times standing in my own kitchen, and then I put it in a drawer. I found a man named Dennis Reyes in the classifieds of the St. Ignace Weekly, a small box ad, private investigations, former Cheboygan County Sheriff's deputy, discreet. I called him from that same kitchen. He sounded like he'd done this kind of work a long time and wasn't impressed by much. I gave him what I had. He said he'd go out to the island himself, said 4 days ought to tell him something. He called me on a Thursday in the first week of November. "I'm withdrawing from the case," he said. Nothing else at first. I asked him why, and he was quiet on the line for a second. "I just am," he said. "I'll refund half the retainer. I'm sorry I can't do more for you." I asked him what he'd found out there, what 4 days had shown him, and he said he'd rather not go into it on the phone. I asked him again. He said he had to go, and the line went dead before I could say anything else. 2 days after that, a check came in the mail, half the money I'd given him, and folded inside the envelope with it was a scrap of paper, torn, not even a full sheet, with 4 words written on it in handwriting that shook. "I'm sorry." That was all. I tried Beverly's number a dozen times through the rest of November, and it rang through to nothing, no voicemail, just ringing. I found the name of the paper she worked for out of Ann Arbor and called the front desk and asked for whoever edited her copy. A man picked up who introduced himself as her editor. "Beverly filed 1 more piece after that trip," he said. "Short thing. A restaurant opening in Ypsilanti. Ran in early March. And since then?" "She took a leave," he said. "Personal. I don't have a return date for her. I don't have a current number either, if that's what you're asking. She didn't leave one." I asked if he could give me anything else, anything at all, and he said that was really all he had, and that he hoped I found what I was looking for. And then he said he had another call coming in. I hung up the phone. I sat in my apartment with the drawer half open where the letter was, 5 names given and none of them accounted for, and I could not see one single thing left to do about any of it. I moved apartments in March. I did it fast, on a weekend, without hiring anyone, and most of my things went into boxes I never bothered to sort. One of those boxes sat in my new closet for 6 weeks before I got around to it. Near the bottom, folded once, was a newspaper clipping I did not remember putting there. 3 paragraphs, cut clean with scissors, from the Mackinac County News, dated February of 1994. 3 ice fishermen missing from the island's east shore, presumed to have fallen through the ice. The case listed as closed, no follow-up, no names I recognized. The handwriting wasn't Levi's. There was no handwriting at all, just the clipping itself. And I sat on the floor of my new apartment for a long time trying to work out how it had gotten into a box of my things that I had packed myself. I couldn't. I still can't. I folded it back along its original crease and put it in the back of the road atlas I keep in my kitchen drawer, behind the Michigan page, and I did not look at it again. October came around the way October does, without asking permission. I drove up to Mackinac City on a Tuesday, a year almost to the day since the last time I'd made that drive, and I did not have a plan when I got there. I told myself that on the way up. I don't know what I'm doing. I said it out loud once in the car just to hear it. The dock looked the same. Emptier, maybe. The woman at the ticket counter was not the one from the year before. I bought a round trip and didn't say anyone's name to her, and she didn't ask why I only wanted the one crossing back the same afternoon. The ferry was smaller than I remembered, or the lake was bigger. 20 minutes across gray water, the same flat gray it had been the first time, and the bluffs came up out of the strait the way they always do, pale and patient, before the town shows itself at all. I did not go into town. I stepped off the boat onto the main pier and I stood there. The storefronts were up the hill behind me, white and shuttered for the season, and I didn't turn around to look at them. I looked east, past the marina, to where the shoreline climbs into limestone and the trees thin out, and the rock goes down to the water in that long, pale drop. I could see the shelf from the dock, small at that distance, a strip of white stone between the bluff and the black water, the same strip I'd stood above a year before with a flashlight in my hand for 2 seconds before I turned it off. It was empty. It was just rock and water, the way it had been the first time I looked at it, before I turned the light on. I stood there for 20 minutes. I don't know what I was waiting for. I didn't hear anything. No clicking, no breathing. Nothing out on the flat gray water but the water itself. Patient, going nowhere, in no hurry. A gull came down low over the pier and I watched it go until it was gone behind the marina roofs. I thought about Levi's coat still on its hook, if it was still there. None of it added up to anything I could do standing on that dock. It never had. I just hadn't been able to stop myself from checking one more time. The return boat was tied up at the far end of the pier, its engine already turning over, a low, steady sound under the gulls in the water. I got on it. I found a seat near the back rail and sat down, and a deckhand undid the lines without looking at me, and the ferry pulled away from the dock the way it had the year before, slow at first, the water folding white along the hull. The town went first. The Victorian roofs, the dark windows, all of it sliding sideways and then smaller. Then the bluffs. I watched the limestone go from close and detailed, every crack and ledge in it, to a pale smear against the shore, to a thin white line above gray water, to nothing at all, just lake in every direction, and the island somewhere behind the haze that a body of water that size throws up on a cold afternoon. I did not go back inside the cabin where it was warm. I sat at the rail with my hands in my jacket pockets, and I watched the island get smaller behind the boat, and smaller, until there was no way to tell the bluffs from the sky, and I did not look away from where it had been until there was nothing left there to look at.